Winston Churchill once said, "An appeaser is one who feeds a crocodile, hoping it will eat him last." And gee, that quote resonates more now than ever as the West bows down to Hamas at its own peril, especially at a time when Israel is not only fighting for its own survival, but for that of the West against terror. So with that, mark in your calendar September's meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, as it's gearing up to be the day Australia joins in to follow the leader and appease the terror group on the world stage in recognising a Palestinian state.
From a personal point of view, I welcome this momentum, this progress that's been made in the international community. From an Australian point of view, recognition of the state of Palestine is a matter of when, not if.
Well, this is just a sad and disappointing moment for Australia when those elected to represent us fold so swiftly, all but guaranteeing the anti-Semitic attacks continue and Australian Jews continue to live in fear. And for what? To jump on the bandwagon and reward Hamas, follow the leader, or perhaps feed the crocodile? Now, of course, it all started with France after President Emmanuel Macron said his vision is for Israel and Palestine to live side by side in peace, even though Hamas does not want peace. The UK then vowed to do the same.
I can confirm the UK will recognise the state of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution.
Well, this is just complete bogus nonsense. There is a ceasefire deal on the table put forward by Israel and the US, but it was rejected by Hamas. And then overnight, Canada too joined in.
Canada intends to recognise the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney went on to say that the prospects of a two-state solution have been steadily and gravely eroded. Really? You think? And by whom? Well, it's not Israel. The prospect of peace has been eroded by the terror group running the Gaza Strip and who started this war on October 7. And now, of course, Australia is mulling its options. This capitulation by the West gives Anthony Albanese a wide berth. In fact, it's worked perfectly for him. A backdrop of the United Nations, a majority of UN members in favour of recognising Palestine, 147 do recognise, just 46 don't. And our allies are now backing it in. So it's really an easy opportunity, and Labor MPs are lining up.
File members of the Labor Party have been pushing for recognition of a Palestinian state, goodness, for many, many years now. Do you see that that could happen relatively soon?
Well, I think it's a question of when, not if.
We're now saying that the recognition of a Palestinian state doesn't have to come at the end of a peace process, that a Palestinian state can be recognised on some conditions.
What matters is not so much the time frame for recognition, it's the circumstances on when that recognition would advance the prospects towards a two-state solution.
Yeah, this capitulation is all under the guise of Hamas must release the hostages, Hamas has to agree to peace, there has to be a two-state solution, blah, blah, blah. And what they all seem to forget is that they are dealing with jihadis who don't want peace. They don't want a two-state solution, they want their own state. And don't forget, Hamas was voted in, and the eradication of Israel is in its charter. And so the opposition is rightly today asking questions.
You don't always have to follow suit. It's not always necessary to follow suit. My mother always said, if somebody puts their head in the oven, you don't have to go and do it as well. And we should not be rewarding Palestine, Hamas. They're still run by a terrorist organisation. Let's be brutally honest.
What do you think of Australia's position?
Well, let's not prematurely reward Hamas.
Do you think those countries have done that? They've prematurely rewarded?
Absolutely they have.
I really think the Australian government's position here is incoherent and inconsistent, and it is driven, let's be clear, by domestic political considerations.
And for all this talk of Palestinian statehood, it may even just be breaking the law. Some of Britain's most prominent lawyers have warned Keir Starmer that his pledge would not meet the criteria for recognition as set out under the Montevideo Convention. The 1933 treaty laid out the 4 key criteria for statehood in international law. A state must possess a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. The 40 members of the House of Lords also raised concerns that there is no certainty over the borders of a proposed Palestinian state and that the government would face difficulty continuing to recognise millions of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza as refugees, given recognition of statehood would mean they were in their own territory. So, newsflash, Palestine meets none of these criteria under international law. The lawyers also argue that there is no functioning single government right now and it has no capacity to enter into diplomatic relations. So newsflash again, Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip, is a proscribed terrorist group in the UK. Dear, oh dear. So look, let me summarise this for you. The French president wants to recognise Palestine because he wants to see Israel and Palestine live side by side in peace, even though Hamas does not want peace. The UK PM wants to recognise Palestine because it wants Israel to commit to a 2-state solution, even though Hamas does not want to commit to a 2-state solution. The Canadian Prime Minister wants to recognise Palestine because a 2-state solution has been eroded, even though it's been eroded by Hamas. Australia looks set to recognise Palestine just because, well, actually, who knows why? It hasn't said why. It's just said it's a matter of if, not when. And for all this chat of Palestinian statehood, it could be in breach of international law. But never mind, let's give Hamas, the same terror group who murdered 1,200 Jews, raped and tortured women and took 250 Jews hostage, recognition on the world stage. Hamas is the puppet master and Western democracies are the marionettes. An appeaser who feeds the crocodile.